short prayer.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, thank you for this opportunity to speak on this very auspicious day that is coming on Tuesday, most of the world will be celebrating Christmas on Tuesday. But in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, Tuesday is a very, very important day for all of us. And it is the disappearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Is anyone here for the first time? Okay. Welcome. Anybody is hearing about Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati for the first time today? Okay. Good. So we'll have a nice introduction to who Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati is. When we hear and study about great personalities, it can inspire us to understand their teachings and to apply the principles that they laid out for us in great ways. And it also can inspire us to understand the great potency of the message that is coming down in Guru Parampara, how powerful this message is. And so today we'll speak about Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who is situated on this altar, seated just in front of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, wearing the glasses. And so you can understand with the Murti on the altar, this must be some great, great personality. And a very, very important personality for all of us, because he is the spiritual master of our founder Acharya A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And we are here in the home of Srila Prabhupada, benefiting from all the endeavor that Srila Prabhupada put forth to spread this message of spirituality. And Srila Prabhupada was working under the direct instruction of his guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So in our scriptures, we see the importance of following in the footsteps of our previous acharyas, Shaktovati. And quite coincidentally, the quote that is appearing today from Srila Prabhupada speaks about how to follow in the footsteps of our previous acharyas, but to be careful not to imitate. So we'll see this great personality, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and many of the things he did. And when we speak about him, let's keep in mind one thing, because when we speak about his glories, it may take us back to some fanciful imaginations. But this is a personality who was here in very recent history. At the time that planes were starting to fly in the sky, cars were starting to take over the roads. This is the time in which Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was in beginning his movement. So when we hear about his extraordinary powers, extraordinary ability, this isn't some personality thousands of years ago, 500 years ago. This is in very recent history. And so we'll come to appreciate this great personality with this discussion today, I hope. There's been many things written and said about him, so I tried to compile a synthesis of some of this information for our discussion today. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he changed the course of spirituality in the world. He altered the entire course by very forcibly and lovingly and bravely propagating the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Up until his time, great spiritualists would discuss the glories of devotional service, and they would gather in holy dhams and holy places and carry on great discourses. But it was not until Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur took on the mission of entering the epicenter of material attachments. He entered into the big cities of India and very courageously began to preach this mission. He was the first of our acharyas to take the messages from the holy dhams and bring them to the masses. And he went head-on against the influence of Maya and the deep attachments the materialists had. And so he began to preach in the big cities of Calcutta, Mumbai, Delhi, all over India. And he was really a pioneer in this endeavor. Prior to this, no one had embarked on such a vision. The words we can use to describe Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur are innumerable. But some that came to mind, prodigy, very bold, a scholar, innovative, courageous, extraordinarily humble, austere, loving, and compassionate. It is rare that you can find such variety of qualities and characteristics to describe a single person. But this is what we find in Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He was known as the Simha Guru, the Lion Guru, because he was extraordinarily ferocious in his preaching to break apart the bogus philosophies that were propagating the times and to attack the influence of Maya on the conditioned souls. But like a lion to its cub, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was also extraordinarily loving and compassionate to the fallen conditioned souls. And it is due to this great love and compassion that we have the opportunity to be seated here today under the shelter of Srila Prabhupada to be able to speak and enjoy the process of devotional service. So, today we'll discuss his great story and pastimes. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur appeared in this world in 1874, and he departed in 1936. In 62 years, he carried out an extraordinary mission, and he set the foundation for Srila Prabhupada to then take the mission to the West. Everything we experience here was built upon this foundation Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur established. And his activities culminated in this extraordinary instruction to Srila Prabhupada, where he said, "You preach this message to the West." He said this to Srila Prabhupada in their first meeting, and he said it just a couple of weeks before leaving this world in a letter, where he told Srila Prabhupada, "You now take this message to the English-speaking world." And it was that instruction that inspired Srila Prabhupada to carry forward the mission that we are all now benefiting from. So, in order to understand the activities of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and the time, we have to rewind the clock a little bit, some 400 years actually, to the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is on this altar, on the left-handmost altar, right-hand side. Who is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? He is Lord Krishna himself. But he came in the mood of a devotee. And he came to spread the highest gift one can give. This is the gift-giving season. And we're all searching for that memorable, once-in-a-lifetime gift. But the greatest gift that can be given, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave. And that is to awaken our love for Krishna. Because with the love for Krishna, we achieve everything that can be achieved. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came and gave his greatest gift with the simplest of processes. He said, just chant the holy names of the Lord, and you can obtain this gift of love of God. And he was so compassionate that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not discriminate to whom to give this gift. He gave it to everybody, anyone who would hear. He gave it undiscriminately, broadly, extraordinarily compassionate. And so this gift Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left for us is extraordinarily valuable. And he made a prediction that in every town and village of the world, these holy names would be chanted. He didn't say in every town and village of Bengal, or in India, or in Asia. He said, of the world. So after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu finished up his pastimes in the early 1500s, the mission and preaching carried on for some generations. But in the due course of time, the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became lost. Bogus philosophers had taken the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and twisted it for self-gain. And the pure teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were virtually gone. Just a few sweet souls had understood this knowledge after a couple hundred years had passed. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sent one of his great devotees back to the material world for our benefit, to revive this original message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that great personality was Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He is situated on the altar and these frames in the middle. He is the fourth one from the left, or the second, the rightmost, sorry. He is the rightmost altar. Picture, excuse me. That is Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He appeared and was practicing Krishna consciousness in the mid-1800s. He was a very high-class person. He was a magistrate in the British government. But he was a pure devotee of the Lord. And he very staunchly, on the basis of Shastra, began to revive this message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He wrote books after books after books. We consider him the seventh Goswami, based on a vast literature he compiled, pulling out the real essence of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur felt he was limited in what he could do to truly revive the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And at this time he was living in Jagannath Puri. And he went and prayed and begged at the feet of Lord Jagannath. He said, "Please give me a son who can carry forward this work and awaken this message of yours." And so he prayed. And in 1874, on February 6th, the fourth son of Bhaktivinoda Thakur was born. And this son, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, named Bimala Prasad. In the Jagannath temple, after all of the offerings are made to Lord Jagannath, Vimala Devi has been given the benediction that she will first receive this prasad as Mahaprasad. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur named this child Vimala Prasad as a gift from Lord Jagannath, answering his prayers. When Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur appeared, he appeared coming from the womb with his umbilical cord wrapped around his body as a Brahmin thread. The astrologer who came to provide the horoscope was astonished to see the form of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur at the time of Bimala Prasad. He noted he had all the markings of a Mahapurusha. He had performed so many horoscopes in the past, but never had seen such condition, such situation. He had the 3 lines on the forehead and the neck and the body. He had long arms, all the wonderful markings. And he said, "This person will speak the highest truth." At the age of just 5 months, maybe 6 months, the Lord Jagannath Rath Yatra festival is taking place in Puri. Now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, being a magistrate, he had a house right on the main road in which Lord Jagannath's Rath will pass. And the chariot was proceeding, and Lord Balaram's chariot had passed their home. Mother Subhadra's chariot had passed their home. And as Lord Jagannath's chariot came directly in front of the home of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, it stopped. And it said it had stopped for days. And we know that no matter how much we try to pull the chariot moves only at the will of Lord Jagannath. And so his mother, Shriyukta Bhagavati Devi, saw an opportunity to take her relatively newly born son to have darshan of Lord Jagannath, which actually is quite unusual. The custom is, even in the temples, they don't allow young children, babies. But being the wife of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, she took advantage of the opportunity and brought Bimala Prasad up onto the chariot and at the feet of Lord Jagannath. And Bimala Prasad leaned over to grab the feet of Lord Jagannath. And Lord Jagannath reciprocated and dropped a garland around his body. The pujaris were stunned and began to chant, Haribol, Haribol, Jai Jagannath, Jai Jagannath. They were stunned to see this reciprocation of Lord Jagannath. And they understood this is no ordinary personality. They actually performed the grain ceremony for Lord Jagannath, for Bimala Prasad, right on the cart. And his first foods was Mahaprasad from Lord Jagannath. So very early signs were pointing towards an extraordinarily auspicious personality who had appeared in this world. As we begin to move into his early youth, we see extraordinary qualities, discipline, intelligence, scholarship, abilities at an unbelievable age. At just roughly 3 years old, his father had brought some ripe mangoes. It was mango season. We know in India, king of fruit, when mangoes come, everybody's anxious to enjoy. And his father brought these very wonderful mangoes. And Bimala Prasad took one of those mangoes and was about to eat. Some say he ate. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur very mildly corrected his son. He said, my dear child, these have not been offered yet to the Lord. We must first offer to the Lord. Then we can honor Prasad, as we will do shortly, I promise. Bimala Prasad was stunned. He said, oh, I am an offender. I have tried to enjoy before the Lord is enjoyed. 3 years old child. The rest of his life, he took a vow he would never eat mangoes again. Srila Prabhupada had commented, anytime someone would bring him mangoes, he would say, I am an offender. I cannot take. Even a chutney with mango he would reject from a mistake made at just the age of 3. By the age of 7, he had memorized the entire Bhagavad Gita, all 700 verses. But rote memorization of the verses is not so impressive. What was impressive was his understanding and realizations from the teachings of Lord Krishna. He could speak on the philosophy in extraordinary ability. But he had this great scholarship. He was a brilliant student, photographic memory, all throughout middle school and up into high school. He would only read the books of Srila Narottam Das Thakur and his father and other Vaishnava literatures. He would read Prarthana, Prema Bhakti Chandrika, different books. He would never read a single school book. Yet, he would score the highest marks in the whole school. And it was at this time his tutors, they gave him the title Siddhanta Saraswati, noting his extraordinary scholarship. He was expert in all subjects, yet all he did was study and read our Vaishnava literatures. At this very young age, 10, 11, 12 years old, he would sit in his father's classes and hear the preaching of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And he would be completely wrapped in attention, absorbed in the philosophy and the nectar. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's friends who were hearing these classes were just stunned by how this young child was so deeply absorbed in these teachings. They were moved. When Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur started printing his books, in 1885. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was only 11 years old. And at this time, he began to edit the writings of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. 11-year-old boy was so expert in grammar, in the language arts, that he began to edit Bhaktivinoda Thakur's books. So we see these extraordinary accomplishments at a very young age. He was given admission to the Sanskrit College in Calcutta, and there he continued on his track. He would not read any of the textbooks in the classes, but he would read every book in the library on philosophy and religion. The teachers, the leaders of the school were just stunned at how he was just devouring all of these great books. Yet, he was not studying any of his other books and scoring the highest of marks. He was expert in math and astrology, grammar. He became such an expert in Sanskrit grammar that he was being encouraged to live a life of studying grammar. And he said, "We are not here for grammar. We're here to awaken love of God." Once he engaged in a debate with a great astrologer scholar. His name was Panchanana Sahityacharya. I could not remember his name. They engaged in a debate. And this was in the college days. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur so thoroughly defeated this scholar. It reminds us back when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu defeated the scholar from Kashmir, Keshav Kashmir. He thoroughly defeated him in debate on astrology. And it is said that this person, this great scholar, actually at the end of the debate was so thoroughly embarrassed that he lost control of even Mother's Nature and had to leave the facility. It was such a defeat. This was the great ability of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Yet, when it came to finishing up his studies, he refused to graduate. He left. Because he knew that if he were to graduate from this college, he would graduate top of his class with high marks, and it would make him a very eligible bachelor to be married. And he did not want such. He was committed to a lifelong brahmachari life, and he thought, better I drop out, no one will come running to marry, I drop out. And so he left school. Still, he was offered a professor position in university, given his extraordinary scholarship. But his mission was very different. His mission was not scholarship. His mission was to carry on what his father had started, to revive the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so he left university. He carried on. He actually worked for the king of Tripura for some time, and two kings, and then returned back. And it was in 1898 that Gaur Kishore Das Babaji came from Vrindavan to Mayapur. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji was a great renunciate, a Bhajanandi. And he had come to Mayapur to see the newly installed deities of Shri Gaura Vishnupriya at Yoga. And there he came, and as soon as Gaur Kishore Das Babaji came, he was immediately attracted to Vimala Prasad, Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur. They had an immediate connection. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji gave him his cap and some paraphernalia that his own spiritual master had given him. Very dear articles he'd given. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was drawn to Gaur Kishore Das Babaji's bhajans. Such ecstatic moods he was singing. And Gaur Kishore Das Babaji would come to the home of Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur. He would stay with him often, and he would hear the discussions being led by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And so when it came time for Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur to take initiation, his father Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, "You take initiation from Gaura Das Babaji." Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was thrilled. And he approached, it's said in the month of Magh, in 1900, the year 1900, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was 26 years old at that time. And he approached Gaura Das Babaji for initiation. And Gaura Das Babaji flatly refused. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was a great scholar, famous scholar at this point. And Gaura Das Babaji considered him an illiterate Babaji. He said, "I cannot give you initiation." But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was determined, steadfast. He understood progress cannot be made in spiritual life without the mercy of Guru. And so he begged and begged and begged with the utmost humility. Finally, Gaura Das Babaji said, "Fine. Next time I talk to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I'll ask him." Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was satisfied, and he left. He came back sometime later, and he said, "Did you speak with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu?" He said, "Yes." "And what did he say?" And Gaura Das Babaji said, "I forgot to ask." "Okay, can you ask him next time?" "Yes." And Bhaktisiddhanta left. He came back later. He said, "Did you speak to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu?" "Yes." "And did you ask him? What did he say?" He said, "I don't have to give you initiation." No. And that was a thunderbolt to the heart of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He was struck. And he began to plead. He said, "If you and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who have come to deliver the most fallen of the fallen, cannot show mercy upon me, how fallen I must be." And he said, "In this fallen condition, there is no purpose for me to live. Better, I end my life now." And Gaura Das Babaji was struck by the determination and the humility and the intense desire to take initiation that he finally relented when Bhaktisiddhanta said, "I'll end my life now." And so he initiated him again in 1900. And he initiated him with the name Shri Varshanabhavani Devi Daita Das. This is the name he was given in initiation. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur continued on preaching, writing, reading. But in 1905, he took on the vow to endure great austerity to prepare for his ultimate mission. And in 1905, at the age of 31, he took a vow to chant 1 billion names of the Lord. And he was going to follow in the footsteps of Srila Haridas Thakur by chanting 300,000 names of the Lord every day. He cleared a small area in the jungle near Yogapit. And in an extremely austere condition, he went to chant the holy names of the Lord. 192 rounds every day he was chanting. He was sleeping on the bare ground. He took a vow that he would eat only once a day. But not like us when we eat once a day on a Ekadashi, we bring more and more unlimited foods. No. How he would eat? He would take some rice, cooked bread, and he would put on the ground. And whatever he could eat in one bending down, in one breath, he would take. And that's it until the next day. And like this, in extreme austere conditions, he was fully immersed in the chanting of the holy names. 192 rounds a day, 9 years and 4 months this carried on. When it would rain, he would hold an umbrella in one hand and bead bag in the other, and he would chant. And during this time, he completed his commentary on Chaitanya Charitamrita. He was meeting with great personalities, and he remained fixed. And it was said that people who saw him, he would come out dancing and singing the holy names of the Lord, completely lost in the ecstasy of his chanting. So, this continued for, again, 9 years. In 1915, his spiritual master, Gorkishore Das Babaji, passed away, left this planet. And at the time when he left, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati came to where Gorkishore Das Babaji had left. And there was a big commotion. There was an argument amongst the sadhus about taking the body of Gorkishore Das Babaji. The sadhus wanted to take his body. They knew many people would come to see this great personality and offer some donations. These were all bogus people. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur went and he said, "No, I will take the body." They said, "You are not even a sannyasi. You cannot touch the body of this great Babaji." Bhaktisiddhanta said, "I am his only disciple." He said then, "Okay, if any of you so-called sannyasis, sadhus, have not had any illicit relations with a woman in the last 1 year, step forward and you can take this body." Nobody moved an inch. He said, "Okay, in the last 6 months, if you have not, step forward." Nobody moved. 1 month, 1 week. Then he said, in the last 3 days. And they all left. And we can see the condition of what was happening in this time. And so, Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur established the Samadhi of Gorkishore Das Babaji. He established it in Navadvip and then later moved it to Mayapur. But the departure of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Gorkishore Das Babaji left a great void in the heart of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And he was praying and lamenting what to do, where I'll get the power and mercy to be able to spread this message. And in his dream came Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the 6 Goswamis, all the great personalities, and Gorkishore Das Babaji, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and Jagannath Das Babaji. 3 great personalities. And they implored him that we are with you. We will always be with you. Please go and begin this preaching mission. And thus Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur became enthused again. And in 1918, at the age of 44, he took sannyas. And immediately after taking sannyas, he entered the land of Calcutta. Now this was a land, Gorkishore Das Babaji said, "Do not go. It is full of materialists. It is full of Maya. You will get pulled away." And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say, "Nonsense. I will go very boldly into Calcutta. And what will protect me? I will be carrying your shoes on my head. And with the mercy of my spiritual master, I will carry on your message, your mission." And thus he established the first Gaudiya Math temple in Calcutta. And it was this temple 4 years later that Srila Prabhupada met Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. But before we get to that, we'll understand. So, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's mission at this time was to print books. He began writing, editing, and printing books. But printing books back in those days was no simple process. not in a day of desktop publishing software and electronic medium. This was a very manual, intense process. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was so particular and determined to control the printing of books that he even understood and learned how to operate the very complex printing press machines. These are very complicated machines, and he perfected the art to make sure nothing would stop the printing of books. He considered the books the Brihad Mridanga. He said a Mridanga can be heard for 2 or 3 blocks, but a book can be heard across oceans. And thus, he set forth a very strong determination to print books. And for the next many years, from 1918 until about 1929, he spread this mission very, very rapidly. He was traveling all over India to all the big cities. He established 64 Gaudiya Math temples. And he was giving 2 to 3 lectures a day. Yet, I mentioned earlier, he was very innovative. We know he spent 10 years in an extremely austere, ascetic life, eating virtually nothing, living out in the wild jungle, chanting the holy names. But when he entered the big cities of India, enthused to preach the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he took on very innovative ways to connect. He would meet with big, big people, and he would wear very nice jackets, hats, clothes, whatever it took to connect with these high-class people, trying to inspire them to take to the process of devotional service. He would ride in vehicles, which was forbidden at the time by sannyasis, but he didn't care, for the purpose of preaching, so that he could give 3 or 4 lectures in a single city. He would even ride in vehicles. He would organize great programs. He would tell his followers, you don't cut corners. You organize the nicest of festivals with the greatest of accompaniments. But then he warned to his disciples, do not become attached. This is the Yukta Vairagya principle that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati preached by his actions. He used all the facilities in the service of the Lord, but remained fully detached. And so like this he carried on. And so now we'll rewind back a few years, because in the interest of time, and speak about the most glorious meeting between Srila Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And it was the power of this meeting that is allowing us to be here today. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was giving a class on the rooftop of this temple in Calcutta at the Ulta Dighi Junction Road. And one of Srila Prabhupada's friends, Srila Prabhupada, describes this situation in a lecture he gave in 1973 in LA on the Disappearance Festival Day. And he says, my friend dragged me to see this sadhu. Srila Prabhupada was worn out of seeing so many bogus sadhus. His father was always boasting various sadhus, and he saw them as mostly being phony. And so Srila Prabhupada did not want to meet any sadhus really. But his friends knew him to be, as Srila Prabhupada says, I was known to be religious. And so they would ask him to opine, to validate any sadhu. So his friend dragged him to this meeting. And Srila Prabhupada and his friend offered obeisances, as is the etiquette. And as soon as they rose from offering obeisances, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, you all understand and can speak the English language. You spread this mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the Western world. And at very first moments of meeting, this lifelong instruction came to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada describes that he says, I was a nationalist at the time, and so I engaged in a debate with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Said, who will take to this message when we are a dependent nation? We must first become independent, then people will hear this message around the world. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati very emphatically said, the absolute truth is always the absolute truth. It is independent of whatever political circumstance, social circumstance, economic circumstance exists. It is irrelevant. All that matters is the spreading of the holy names. And Srila Prabhupada says, I was defeated. And everybody was cheering. So they came out of this meeting, they came onto the street, and this friend asked, oh, Prabhupada, what did you think? He says, this is the real Acharya who's come to spread the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Srila Prabhupada describes that at that moment, he accepted in his heart Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur as his guru. It would be another 10 years in 1932 when Srila Prabhupada actually took initiation. Just prior to that, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was organizing a Vrajamandal Parikrama. And Srila Prabhupada was, at that time, in his Grahastha life, running his pharmacy, and he was anxious to meet Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And so he got away for one evening and went to the place, the camp, where Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and all of the disciples were. And there was an option to go see some different sites nearby or to hear a class from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So Srila Prabhupada was so eager to hear. He sat in class. And this class went on for hours. This one won't go on for hours, I promise. This class went on for hours. And slowly everyone was leaving. And just a few very, very senior disciples were left. And Srila Prabhupada. And his intensity of hearing really captured the heart of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So when in Allahabad, when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had come to do the cornerstone ceremony for the new temple that was being built, and Prabhupada was staying there at the time, he was presented to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur as a candidate for initiation. And he said, yes, I know him. He hears very nicely. I have marked him. You can see the power of hearing. And that is the way to make progress in devotional life. And at that time, he was given both first and second initiation. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was very bold in his preaching, even at the risk of his own life. See, the Brahmana community had tried to create a monopoly of spiritual life. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was preaching that a Vaishnava is even higher than a Brahmana. That one who has understood the science of Krishna is qualified to speak about Krishna and become guru of the world. And the Brahmanas did not like this, because their monopoly was being threatened. Twice his life was threatened. They tried to kill him, but he was undeterred, unmoved. Both on parikrama. Once they had bribed a police officer 25,000 rupees to look the other way, and they were planning to murder him. But that police officer said, yes, it is in my job description to accept bribes, but I cannot in this instance. And he informed Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur of this plot, and he narrowly escaped. Like this, twice his life was threatened. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was unmoved. He did not care. Whatever it would take, he would carry on his preaching mission. And so, like this, he continued on spreading this message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, empowering thousands of disciples, and encouraging his foremost disciple, his divine grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Just 2 weeks before Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati finished his pastimes here in the material world, and before going back to the spiritual world, Srila Prabhupada had written him a letter lamenting that I have not been able to render service to you. Your sannyasi disciples and other disciples are constantly 24 hours a day able to render service. I have done nothing for you. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati wrote a letter back. And he said the same thing he said to Srila Prabhupada the very first time they met. You please preach this message to the English-speaking world. And just a few days later, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati left this planet. He left hearing the bhajans of our Vaishnavacharyas. Specifically, he asked to hear this bhajan of Sri Rupa Manjaripada. And so we can see that Srila Prabhupada, his whole life mission then became fulfilling this instruction given by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And it was the power of this instruction that allowed Srila Prabhupada to establish this worldwide revolution of Krishna consciousness. 500 years ago, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said every town and village, there was doubt. 200 years ago, when Bhaktivinoda Thakur proclaimed that soon there will be Americans and Europeans and Russians dancing in the streets of Mayapur singing Harinam. They said, how? Impossible. But by the mercy of Guru Parampara and the great preaching of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he established this foundation from which Srila Prabhupada then built this international society for Krishna consciousness, bringing the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to everyone. And soon, very soon, we will see in every town and village the preaching of the holy names. And so now, with your permission, I just wanted to play something. Some of you have heard this before. That if we want to please Srila Prabhupada, what we can do. I want to play a short snippet from a lecture Srila Prabhupada was giving. This is the lecture in 1973 in LA on the disappearance day of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. I'll just play a minute and a half, and you can hear it.
All of these have to be on my family name.
You can hear it?
Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is gone. I have to take some gas. Oh, I don't know that. But I just saw the word down. Anywhere in my village, I was forced to give up my family life. And so on, we did that. And it brought me somewhere or other in between his lost friends. So, this is the middle of the way. What it is, I'm trying to do big, and you are not helping me. So I have to thank you more. You are actually representing your mind in my heart. Because you are thanking me, and executing the order of my Guru. Thank you.
You can hear the emotion of Srila Prabhupada. He was speaking to his disciples. If we want to be the recipient of the weeping gratitude of Srila Prabhupada, we can help in propagating the mission that Srila Prabhupada came to the West for, to spread the message, to distribute these books, to spread the glories of chanting the holy names. And whatever part we can do to distribute these books, to share this knowledge, Srila Prabhupada will be extraordinarily grateful. And as you heard him say, if you could not hear, he was saying to all of his disciples, you are the representatives of my spiritual master, my Guru Maharaj. Because you are helping me carry out the order of my Guru Maharaj. And he was overcome with emotions. So we also can be the recipient of that love of Srila Prabhupada by carrying on this mission, by distributing the books of Srila Prabhupada, and by chanting the holy names of the Lord. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava ki jai. It's late, but if there are any questions